Member for Bundaberg.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I rise today to discuss an issue in my electorate which is causing unnecessary fear and heartache amongst the most vulnerable. A few weeks ago, the LNP federal member for Hinkler, which covers my electorate, called for my area to be a trial site for the Twiggy Forest cashless welfare card. For those who don't know, this card quarantines 80% of a Centrelink recipient's payment on a card, and it tells them and it restricts what they can and can't buy and where they can and can't spend money. The remaining 20% can be withdrawn in cash. For people on a small fortnightly allowance or payment, this means that things like bus fares, school excursions for their children, fresh fruit and vegetables from our local Shalom markets, all has to come out of a tiny 20% of a tiny fortnightly allowance or payment. Since it was first mentioned, I've held community meetings, I've circulated petitions, and they have gathered thousands and thousands of signatures against the introduction of the card. I've spoken with hundreds of local people who are against the card, but they don't have a voice to be heard by our federal member, who pretends that there's overwhelming community support for its introduction. In fact, Mr Deputy Speaker, the member for Hinkler says he's consulted the community and community leaders, but I haven't been asked to participate, and neither has the member for Maryborough, and neither has the Deputy Mayor for the Fraser Coast Regional Council. I suspect that we're not part of the Yes group, and we will make his questionable stats on support for the card look even more dodgy than they already are. Any question of who has been invited to participate is being met with stony silence or distraction activities. Mr Deputy Speaker, for those who think it's a good idea to control people by telling them what they can and can't do, and the welfare bashing that seems to become a part of the fabric of conversation from our federal LNP representatives, consider this. Everyone who receives family tax payment, childcare benefit, gets money back on Medicare when they go to the doctor or receives a rebate or concession, that's also a form of welfare from the government. To vilify those on payments when they should have our support and generosity is simply un-Australian to me. The money wasted on implementing a system of control over people who would simply do better if they had our support is typical of the direction of the federal LNP government, and my community does not deserve it. My community deserves a government that believes in growing our economy and creating jobs, not talking it down, not painting it as dysfunctional, as a broken community when it is simply anything but broken. This card does not belong in my community, and the people in my community are saying to me no. And if our federal member bothered to get out and talk to people who are likely to be affected by this, he would see that the vast majority are not drug addicts, they're not alcoholics, and they do not deserve to be treated like second-class citizens and to be judged by others every time they go shopping or venture out in public.
I call a member for Dalrymple.
Mr Speaker, I rise